you're trying to decide whether you want to start a Facebook group or you want to start an online community platform like Skool, a Go High Level, Circle, something like that. Well, today we're going to be breaking down the differences between Facebook groups and online community platforms like Skool, Circle, Community, or High Level, or Mighty Networks. We'll give you the pros and cons of each so that you can know exactly which platform you should start your community on. And by the end of the episode, you'll have all the important information that you need to make an informed decision on whether you should start with a Facebook group or an online community platform. So if you'd like to get access to our community launch secrets course, where we actually show you step by step on how to launch your brand new community and get your first 100 members, then there's a link in the description. You can click join our community and you'll get instant access to that, or you can comment below course and we'll send that over to you. Welcome to the Community Builders Podcast. My name is Ron Medlin. I'm here with Jeff Lauro, and we talk about how to help coaches build a six-figure lifestyle businesses using content and community. And on every episode, we want to give you some tips and some strategies you can take away to build your own community. So we're talking about Facebook groups versus online communities today. Jeff, how are we going to get started with this?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think that the best thing to start with, right, is that a lot of people are familiar with groups, been around for a while. Facebook has put a lot of push, behind them. But, what I'd like to know from your perspective is, how are people historically using Facebook groups, as a way to grow their business?
Yeah. So I've used Facebook groups for the past several years to grow my business, but a huge part of how I've been able to generate all the money that I have over the past few years. So I love Facebook groups. This is not me being anti-Facebook groups, but there is a better decision, or I want to give you the best information so that you can make the best decision for yourself. So really, when it comes to coaches, there are two main use cases that most coaches use. They're either using it as a client acquisition system, which is what mostly I do with my Facebook group. And then you have the other use case, which is basically where you deliver a course somewhere else and then you provide support to your clients in a Facebook group. So those are the kind of two use cases that I see most often with Facebook groups. So do you want to talk about each one of those different use cases separately?
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I mean, kind of expanding on those a little bit would be, I think, really helpful for people to kind of understand those two paths.
Okay. So the first use case is the client acquisition system. So the traditional like Facebook group funnel is you drive traffic into the group, and then once somebody gets to the group, they have to answer your membership questions to join. So that's essentially like a funnel. That's an opt-in page, right? So you can capture their name, or their name's already in their profile, but you can capture their email address. You can capture some information about them. You can capture the phone number if you'd like. You can even ask them if they would like to go ahead and book a call. So if you're selling a high ticket program or something like that, and you need to get people on a call, you could ask them directly, hey, would you like to book a call? And then those people are more qualified. So essentially they're saying yes to a call. So that's kind of the traditional funnel. And then the other side, and then you use that funnel to get people into the group. And then inside the group, you nurture them. And then with content, get people to engage with that content, reach out to those people that are engaging because they're warmer leads, and then start conversations in the DM to book calls. That's traditionally how a Facebook group funnel works. And then you've got email on the back end also that's trying to book calls. The other kind of use case is where we talked about, where you have a course somewhere else and then you provide support inside of the community. Okay. So with the traditional funnel, I think that is a great process. It's a great funnel. It still works. And it's very similar to what you would do with a online community. A funnel is essentially the same, except for the differences are basically one is on Facebook and then one is off Facebook. So you've got to drive people off of Facebook. So there's pros and cons to that piece. What do you think about that, driving people off of platform versus keeping them on the platform?
I kind of like the friction that's created by taking them from Facebook into a community, because again, the ultimate goal is to have a community of really the perfect client or perfect potential client. Yeah. So I think adding a little bit of friction there has some value for sure, because if people aren't really willing to move off of Facebook into your community, then they might not really be somebody who'd come into a paid scenario anyway. And right. So maybe it kind of does that. But what are some of the I guess from your perspective, what are some of the specific pros and cons to the idea of driving them off Facebook that you've experienced so far?
Yeah, so you might lose a small fraction of people that don't want to go off of Facebook platform, but if you think about it, it's really just another funnel, and people leave Facebook all the time to download a lead magnet or buy a low ticket course or watch a webinar. So it's not that much different from that. So I think driving the traffic off of platform and getting people to convert I think that is very insequential, like whether you're driving them to Facebook or whether you're driving them to off of the platform. So if anybody kind of tries to use that argument to convince you that Facebook groups are better, I don't think that is valid. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing that I believe is very important is I want to get people off of Facebook where I'm borrowing the audience, right? And onto something that I own as soon as possible. Now, when somebody does join a Facebook group and you're collecting their email address, you are getting them all platform essentially. You're getting them on your email list. But why not also get them into a community where you can nurture them even more? You've got another channel to put your content so they're more likely to see that content. I just think it's a smart move. And then the other thing about the borrowed versus owned audience, I don't know if you know who Molly Maloney is. I think you're Molly Mahoney.
Yeah, no, sure.
Okay, so this is a great example of what can happen. So she made a post recently on Instagram and she was just bawling her eyes out because she had just lost her, they had shut her out of Facebook and they had like shut down her account, and she was just like freaking out because that's a huge part of her business. And
Absolutely.
luckily she got that back, but she had to jump through a bunch of hoops to do it. And that's not the only example that I've seen of that. I was actually working with a coach in the MSP space a few years ago, and he's making like $5 million a year, and somebody had hacked his account and they posted some kind of weird porn thing on it. It's not funny, but posted that on his account, and then his account got shut down for like months. And so that's tens of maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars that he lost because of that. So that can happen, and anybody that says it can't, you don't know that for sure. Plus, you see a lot of more restrictions coming out as far as like DM outreach stuff. Now we use that regardless of whether we're trying to drive people to a Facebook group or not. It's just another point that I'm trying to make there is that Facebook can really do whatever they want. So I want to get them off of that platform as soon as possible to some place where I control, I have more control over what I can deliver to that person.
And I know this is going to sound like maybe a little odd, but in Facebook, right? I feel like there's so many more distractions, right? So if I'm on Facebook, I'm getting pop-ups, I'm getting messages coming through. Whereas if I have them in a community that's mine, there's probably a lot less distractions, which means they're going to be a little bit more focused. So yes, there is a micro commitment, needed to get from Facebook to my community. But once they're there, I feel like you can be a lot more focused and not necessarily have all of those, kind of pop-ups and distractions that, typically can happen. So that way they can focus on the content. They can focus on, the positives that we're doing in our community. Obviously, take the courses and that kind of stuff. So I think that's another real good reason to, kind of go off Facebook platform is, trying to get them into a spot where they can be a little bit more focused with kind of what you're working on. So
yeah, I mean, if you're actively out there trying to grow your business on Facebook, you're probably using your profile. So that means you're growing your friend network. So the more you grow your friend network, the more notifications you're going to get from those people.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's gotten a lot more noisy in your notifications in particular. So, and then, that can lead us to some more of the conversation that we're about to have. So those are the two models, really. What else do we want to jump into around the Facebook groups?
Well, I mean, I think the key elements that we just kind of pose are pretty clear. I mean, from your perspective, who do you think the big winner is on that, right? Like, which direction do you think is the better path, Facebook group or off community?
Well, like I said, I choose, as far as lead gen, I want to drive people off of the platform. That's kind of why I've moved my focus from my Facebook group to more of my Skool community now, because I just want to own the audience. Now, I still use my Facebook group as a kind of a traffic channel, and it's still very effective for a lot of people, but just the more and more things that kind of come, and then recently Facebook took away the API to be able to go live inside of the Facebook group. So just different things that are happening that I'm seeing less reach in the group. So again, and we'll talk about a lot of those things. So the winner, as far as where I would want to set up my community funnel, because that's basically what both of those are, would be off the platform. So community platform, Skool, High Level are true favorites, but there's also Circle, there's Mighty Networks, these are the other ones. Now, we talked about the other use case, and I think this is kind of also backs up the same idea. The other use case is, okay, so I'm going to create a course, I'm going to house that somewhere else, where that's High Level, Kajabi, ClickFunnels, wherever you hold your courses, and then I'm going to service or I'm going to support people on Facebook groups. So that makes zero sense to me. I mean, like if I'm going to have, and this gives me another reason why I would want to create a community. If I'm going to have a course somewhere, why not wrap that into a community? Because it's just more engagements, more places that I can deliver my content to help me nurture those people and convert them. So I think the clear winner there, regardless of, whether you're using Facebook groups or the community as a client acquisition system, I would certainly rather have my community and my course on the same platform, because if they're going to be logging in there anyway, then why not wrap that thing in a community?
Well, and I think that makes it easier for the client too, right? I mean, if they're on a course platform, they're taking in some information, all of a sudden they need some help with something, they get stuck, then all of a sudden they're having to jump to a whole different, platform in order to ask a question or have
Yeah.
interaction. So yeah, I mean, it makes total sense to have it kind of wrapped in, in the same container.
Yeah, much better customer experience for sure.
Yeah. So, you talked earlier about, one of the cons of moving your, lead gen funnel off Facebook, might be that people would be, opposed to joining another platform off Facebook, so again, I think it could be a good thing to talk about that next, like, is that something people should be afraid of? Because I mean, there's a lot of people that have built some big groups, they got thousands upon thousands of people. I mean, I spoke to one of our clients today, they have close to 25,000 people in their Facebook group, what are your, kind of, I guess, go a little deeper on that part of it, as far as you worried about that, or should people even be worried about that kind of going off platform?
We're talking about like a user adoption of moving from
absolutely.
using Facebook groups versus community. Okay, so there's a couple of different things I kind of think about here. One is, what niche are they in? Okay, so the digital marketing niche, I don't worry about that at all. I'd rather that's where I'd have online community platforms like Skool or High Level, because everybody, or for the most part, everybody knows who Alex Hermosi is if you're in the digital marketing world, right? And then Sam Ovens, who's the owner or founder of Skool, also is a pretty big name in the industry as well. Some people might not know him as well, but most of the people know Hermosi, who just recently invested in Skool, and now that's kind of his core thing that he promotes on the internet. So I think the digital marketing space is going to be they're going to adopt Skool and all these other, and then you've got High Level. So a lot of the people that are in the digital marketing space, in the agency space, trying to go a SaaS or working with coaches, they know what the High Level is. So when High Level's features kind of catch up with Skool, I think you're going to see some big growth there. And then a lot of people build their stuff on like Circle and Mighty Network that are in a lot of different niches. So as far as like the digital marketing niche is concerned, I have no qualms whatsoever starting a community off of Facebook. Now, if we're talking about other niches that aren't quite as, might not know necessarily who Alex Hermosi is, or might not be familiar with these other platforms, I think that I would do a little bit more research as to where my competitors or different people that are in similar niches are housing their communities, because a lot of maybe some of those other target audiences will be a little bit more hesitant to move off of platform than people in the digital marketing niche, because they just don't know what it is. Now, I think if your lead magnet is good enough, they'll go anywhere you want them to, and then they'll start to adopt the thing if you have a good onboarding experience, and there's lots of other people just like them in that community, that they will definitely adopt it. So if you actually look inside of Skool's discovery feature, which is where you can go and you can search for all the different communities that are in Skool, and you can find all kinds of different communities. I'm actually looking there right now. You've got the number 6 community is a fragrance community. Actually pretty funny. It says learn how to leverage the power of scent to become the man you know yourself to be. I didn't realize scent would make you a man, but okay. Number 8 is Cyber Dojo. So cyber security community. So that's another one that's outside the digital marketing space. 10 is Real Men, Real Style. So men's fashion. There's a soccer one in the top 30. There's a community. One of the biggest ones is teaching people how to jump. So it's another one, Watch Lover. So those are all in the top 30 of all communities on Skool, and they're in different niches that have nothing to do with digital marketing space. So just scanning through that discovery feature, you can see a ton of other communities that are starting to get on to Skool. Also, if you think about like the gym space and the fitness space, a lot of those people also probably know Alex Hermosi, because that's where he kind of got his start in the gym space. So if I was starting a community outside of online marketing, I might consider a Facebook group at that point, but by a very, very thin margin. And that margin's probably going to become thinner and thinner as time goes on, because I just think that it's going to be more and more common for these communities to be on something like a Skool or a High Level community or a Circle. Also, I think there's an argument to be said for kind of differentiating yourself and having your own community that's not on Facebook group where all your competitors are.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I believe the number that Sam Ovens mentions, that, I think he's one of something like 100 million type users like inside of Skool. So I think it's in, their mission is to really diversify. And I think there's something kind of cool about having something different than what's traditional inside of a niche. I mean, like some of the ones you met, the idea of whatever colognes or perfumes, or again, kind of how to increase your vertical. I mean, those might not typically be what people think of as a community, but obviously they're doing really well.
Right.
So instead of having something as simple as like, hey, I have a course, learn to jump higher, it's like, no, like, well, I have a course, but I also have a community where you have like-minded people gathering together, so I think that's really, really powerful.
I want to see what's going on in that scent community. Are they just like,
Yeah, it's like what I'm curious on that is like, what is their upside? Maybe, or do they
Yeah.
have maybe a store where they're actually selling the clones that they're perfumes that they're promoting? So they actually use that as a way to kind of say, hey, here's the hottest ones, and by the way, you can order them here at a discount. Like that's definitely one that definitely like to hack that one, check that one out.
Get in there, man. Tell us what it's like.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what are we talking about next?
Well, I mean, again, there's some valuable stuff. So, as we're talking about, niches outside of digital marketing, and Facebook groups and platforms like that. I mean, it kind of brings up a question for me, like, how easy is it to grow your Facebook group versus your community off Facebook?
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of funny. Like, so I had a Facebook group. I still have a Facebook group, and I was trying to grow it, and I was simultaneously kind of half-ass growing my Skool community. But funny, my Skool community, and I am in the digital marketing space, coaching niche, but my Skool community was growing at a faster rate than my Facebook group. Now, I think these are kind of equal. I think you could easily grow your Facebook group as easy as you could your Skool community. It's funny though, Facebook just recently, probably, I don't know how long it's been now. It's been a little bit of time where you could run ads directly to a Facebook group, but you couldn't do that for a long period of time. Right. So I would love to see some data on how much it costs to convert somebody into a Facebook group with a direct ad versus a Skool community with a direct ad, especially if they're free communities. But I would say they're just as easy to grow on both platforms, no matter if it's on Facebook or if it's on Skool or High Level or some other platform. I think if you've got a good enough lead magnet that is the thing that's going to capture their attention and get them to want to come and join the communities, I think they'll join either one.
Yeah. So, it sounds like you kind of use both platforms, right? Just as easily. Mm-hmm. But basically, if you take your Facebook group and your community, what do you think about the reach side of it from, both of the different paths, I guess?
Yeah. So reach is a big one, right? Because if we're doing content, organic marketing to get people to buy our stuff, then we need as many eyeballs on that content as possible. So which one of these platforms is going to give you the most eyeballs? So both of these platforms give you tools to help you get more reach. Most people are probably familiar with the @everyone tag that you can use in Facebook groups. It came on and Facebook groups, people loved it. I loved it. And it worked really well at first. And it's supposed to tag everybody in your group, and you can use it every 24 hours. When it first released, maybe it actually did give you that much reach, but I think people abused it and some users didn't like it. People are leaving communities and everything. So I think Facebook kind of pulled back on that a little bit. You still have the ability to do it, but it does not give you anywhere close to all of the reach. You don't tag all your members. I probably get about 10% of the people that when I do the @everyone tag that sees it. So my reach does not go up using their version of something that's going to give you more reach. Also, even if you do get @everyone tag, we talked about how the notifications are kind of very, very busy. So it's kind of getting drowned out by all the other stuff anyway. So that is not super helpful. The thing that is probably gives you the most reach and helps you the most in Facebook groups is going to be your Facebook events. And this is probably one of the most powerful things in a Facebook group. So you can create the event, you can invite everybody to that event. And then if people say they're going or whatever to the event, then they'll get more notifications that the event's about to happen. So if you are using a Facebook group, definitely use events. So when we talk about the community platforms, what do they give you to expand your reach? Well, High Level Community has something similar. They have a @everyone tag. So when you use that @everyone tag on one of your posts, everybody in the community is going to get an email plus an in-app notification. So not only are they getting it, to their email address, but they're also getting that in-app notification so that multiple places to see that notification. Skool gives you the option when you create a post, and I'm not sure how often you can use that @everyone tag in High Level. I'd have to read up on that, but Skool gives you the option to send an email notification when you post something, and you can use that every 72 hours. So same thing as with High Level communities, they're going to get an in-app notification, and they're also going to get an email that tells them about that post. Plus, Skool has, whenever you join a community at first, all these default notifications are kind of set up, and they come out. Some of them are daily, some of them are weekly. They even have some that are hourly. So unless the user turns off all those notifications, which they kind of get annoying, I'll be honest, they're going to get a ton of notifications around content that's being posted inside the community. Now, also with a group, whenever you post something as an announcement post, as an admin, all of your people that are following you will see that. So that's another way that you can get notifications. Also with with Skool, you can set up events somewhat similar to Facebook. You can set up recurring events pretty easily, and you can set it up in a way where it will send out an event reminder the day before any of those events happen. So lots of ways to send notifications. Plus, it's a lot less noisy. Now, it depends on how many communities you're in, how often those people are posting, but it's much, much less noisy than all the Facebook notifications. So all things considered, if we're comparing apples to apples on I'm posting the exact same content and I'm sending it to the exact same amount of people, I would definitely hands down give online communities more reach right now.
Okay. So, I mean, that covers reach, which is awesome. What about the engagement side, though?
Yeah. So, well, reach is obviously going to influence engagement. So, the more people that see your content, if it's the same content on both platforms, then, more people see it, more people are going to engage with it, right? So, that's going to factor in. Plus, you also have with these, not all of them. I mean, I'm not sure about like Circle and Mighty Networks, but I know for a fact that Skool has it and High Level has it, is the gamification piece. So, you can offer rewards and at different levels. And so, users can accumulate points based off of how much they're engaging in the community. And then the more points you get, the more levels you unlock. And then you can have rewards, each of those different levels they can actually unlock. And that's going to encourage engagement and influence engagement. So that helps a lot with engagement. You could probably figure out how to rig something up in Facebook to be able to do that, but it's just not native to the platform. So definitely I would give community platforms the win for me for engagement.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that?
Well, I like the gamification, aspect of it, because it is kind of fun. I mean, it seems silly, but to kind of see your numbers grow inside of it, is pretty cool. I've seen a number of really great things open up with so much engagement. I mean, I've seen some cool stuff where they give you one-on-one calls, not a sales call, but a legit call that helps you. I've seen them open up free courses to it. So, I like the gamification side of it tremendously. I definitely, obviously Facebook doesn't really offer that. So I think from a standpoint of staying on a platform and kind of enjoying and growing with that community, again, I would give the edge as well to, to Skool or again to, High Level or whatnot. I'm not as familiar with, Circle or Mighty Networks or some of those, but, I enjoy the gamification, man. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, cool.
What do you think about the direct messaging side? What have you experienced as far as the response between the two platforms?
Yes, I think people are more used to using Messenger, like even just messaging with your friends and stuff like that. Also, I think more people probably have Facebook Messenger on their phones than say Skool or whatever the associated mobile app that with your community. So I'd probably give this a little bit of a edge to Facebook, but I don't really, honestly, we still use a lot of Facebook Messenger for driving people into our community and even communicating with those people. And I do think that if you are active inside of these different communities, Skool, High Level, whatever, and you see a notification and you read that, you are going to, if it's a message that doesn't look like spam, you're going to be more likely to read it and respond to it. But I would give a slight edge to Skool or to Facebook groups on this. If you do have a community, I would definitely have in my onboarding sequence, getting those people to download whatever the mobile app is for your community as fast as possible so that, they see more of your notifications, especially if you're sending your DM outreach stuff. But slight edge there to Facebook when it comes to the DM response.
Yeah, I would agree. The one thing I will say about Facebook, and I don't know if you get it, but I seem to just I get flooded with direct messages on Facebook. And so I can almost psychologically, I feel like I just kind of even turn it off. I mean, sometimes where I don't even want to look at it. Whereas if I'm in Skool, for example, I get a notification. I don't know. I guess it's just, I treat it different. One, because I don't get as many. So maybe it's just, I pay more attention to it. But anyway, that's my thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, you do get a little spam in Skool too. I'm not going to lie. You're going to get spam probably in both places. You're going to get way more spam in Facebook though. That's definite.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's not a huge deal for me because I'm going to use Facebook Messenger regardless in my process, whether I have my community on Facebook or I have it off of Facebook.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes, I think all things considered, I mean, we went through a lot of different things. We talked about keeping it on driving people off of platform versus on platform. We talked about, are people going to adopt it based on the different niches? Talked about how good is the reach on both platforms? How's the engagement? We talked about the DM response. We talked about a lot of stuff. And I think for the most part, I landed personally on, having the community off of Facebook. And, I'm not super super biased about this. I used to have I still have my Facebook group. It's 4,200 members. So why would I leave that if I didn't believe in the communities off of Facebook as the future? So that's my take on it. What about you, Jeff?
Well, I don't know. I again, I've used Facebook for a really long time. I don't catch myself going out of my way to Facebook as much, and I think partly it's because when I have time to do certain things like that, I want to go and learn. So I'll find myself naturally wanting to go into a community that actually has those courses and so forth. So I don't know that I'm the best representation of that, because I know a lot of people love just kind of going and seeing what their friends had for dinner and all the other kind of stuff to you with Facebook. I think I just kind of a little more on that kind of business focus and want to just really be focused on the idea of like, if I have free time, I want to go, learn some stuff. So I personally would lean towards, a community as my first choice.
I mean, you would be our best, you'd be our ideal customer. So, if that's the type of people that you want on those platforms, then you're right. And I use it the same way, right? There's very few Facebook groups that I'm a part of where I feel like I'm really getting the things that I want out of it. Now, that might just be the way that people run their Facebook groups. So it's not necessarily which platform is better on that, but that is the tendency to have more educational content, I think, in your communities off the platform, and then using the Facebook group is more of a conversion mechanism, right?
Yeah. So let me, a little bit off task, but, topic a little bit, but what is your thoughts on somebody having a Facebook group and using that really, as the launching pad into a group? So in other words, like in a way running kind of two communities, right? Where they're doing a Facebook group and, then they're obviously, having a community outside that. I mean, do you think it's just a lot of extra work? Do you think it's worth it? If you had to kind of start all over again, like, when you didn't have a Facebook group, would you even consider even starting a Facebook group at this point? And community, like, how would you, kind of deal with that aspect of it?
I would not start a Facebook group at this point. I think that the way that some of these community platforms are set up and the way you can kind of customize the structure of it, you can create a very linear path to conversion a lot easier than a Facebook group, if that makes sense. So like a person joins our Facebook or community, I can send them to different places inside of the community that I want them to take these little baby step actions to help me to move them towards conversion, if that makes sense. You can do it in Facebook. It's just a little bit more difficult. It's not as customizable, if that makes sense. So to me, I can customize and personalize the path that I want people to take easier with my community. Plus, I've got everything in one location. I've got my courses, because again, I'm going to be using a course as a lead magnet. So, I've got everything I need there. I have my community, I have my lead magnet, I've got my funnel, and I've got my way to convert them into the next thing. So I definitely would not start a Facebook group at this point.
Gotcha.
Personally.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes complete and total sense. So, what about the cost factor, right? If you kind of look at, the fact that, I mean, again, I think Skool is a steal at the price. Obviously, if you have a high level, it has communities, in it. I believe third quarter, they're actually adding like the DM features and some things that are lacking. So what about, if you're kind of aiming at somebody who's just starting out and they don't really have much of a budget, would you say it's worth that, little bit to actually go ahead and just bite the bullet, make the commitment and get the community and kind of start from there? Or would you, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I don't necessarily like about Skool. Is got if I have a free and a paid, which is our model, free community to help people get that one transformational win, and then that creates demand for the full system. So we have a free that does that creates that demand and makes them want the paid membership, and then we have a high ticket offer on the back end of that. So you got to have two different communities, and for Skool, you got to pay, for two communities. What my preference would be, even though I love Skool's culture and it's real fun, and I don't think anybody will ever beat their culture as far as communities are concerned, I do think that high level is going to have more features and just more flexibility on how you can create your communities. And I love high level. Everything that I do in my business is probably on high level. So I'd love to have it in one place. Plus, I only have to have that $97 fee if I'm running just my business, my community, and don't have like an agency account or a SaaS level account. So I don't know when they're going to come out with that chat feature. We're actually doing a video that kind of compares high level versus Skool. And that's the one thing that's kind of would hold me back from starting a high level community, because it's such a key part to our strategy. But if you're trying to make this a real business, you're going to have to spend a little bit money.
Agreed.
And it's just going to make your life easier to have certain tools that help you to automate things and help you to streamline a lot of the stuff. So I always call it death by 1,000 softwares, because they add up. But, if you're just starting out and you don't need a whole lot, you could start a Skool community, and then that is just basically your business. Now, it's nice to have a CRM like high level to help you manage your leads and everything like that, but you could would, try to run it real lean with just like a Skool community right now.
Yeah, well, and there's definitely a way to plan that out. I know that high level is it says Q3 for their DM chat. So sometime the next 3 months they should be adding that feature to it. So for those people that are I guess thinking about starting and they aren't a budget, I would encourage them to grab a copy of Group Fuel. Obviously they can put community. The nice thing is they could actually do a free community and a paid community with high level. So if they are on a budget, I'd kind of recommend that path. And then knowing that high level has done an amazing job kind of keeping up with technology and just always adding great features and doing different things. So I don't think it'll be too long before they kind of, I want to say, kind of caught up and maybe even start to surpass Skool a little bit, because I haven't seen a lot of changes really in Skool over the last couple of years. I mean, it's been changes, but nothing significant.
Yeah,
So
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you like this episode, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to get your hands on our free course where we show you exactly how to launch your brand new community, get your first 100 members in the next 10 days, then click on the link in the description and you'll join our community and you'll get instant access to that. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you guys.